So Rahim, let's talk about NFTs, cryptos, Web3. Web3, let's keep it Web3 because Web3 I think covers all of it. In terms of investment, because after having a conversation with you and realizing that the potential that this can have, so how does one invest in this, and how safe is the investment when compared to investing in gold, in stock markets, investing in foreign exchange?
All right, I'm gonna start with like a small example story that kind of will be a good analogy to tell you, not analogy, like a story that will tell you why this is so much different to how the traditional world works. So let's take, so there's a particular project in the NFT space called the Bored Ape Yacht Club. It's basically, there are like 10,000 NFTs. They have like an artwork. It's almost like a collection of NFTs. Think of it like Marvel characters. Okay. They came out like last year. Anyone could buy them for a relatively like cheaper price. They're valued at a very high price right now. I'll tell you why am I talking about this right now. Let's say today I am a soft drink brand and I want to partner with Marvel and like get Spider-Man on their on the drink to do a campaign. What happens in the traditional world is that you get licensing rights. You pay Marvel millions of dollars. They would have like a very stringent process of how you're allowed to use it, in what direction you can use it. They will want to make sure like no color is being changed. Like they'll be very picky about all of these things. All that happens. Let's say you do the campaign. You put like billboards all around the city and stuff. Let's say the campaign goes to zero, which happens all the time. What has happened is you've lost that $1 million that you've put into licensing that Spider-Man. What happens in NFTs is that when you are, so there are like a lot of NFTs, when you own these NFTs, you own the commercial rights to them, which has never happened in human history. So right now you can't use, let's say, Mickey Mouse and create something out of it because you don't have commercial rights to it. In NFTs, a lot of times when you buy things, you have commercial rights to it. So let's say, in a similar example, let's just go back to that example. Now, let's say I take a Bored Ape, which is one of the most successful projects in this space, that instead of getting licensed for this Marvel, I get a Bored Ape. I get this Bored Ape, I put it on this can, I do this campaign all around the city, and let's say the same thing happens. The campaign goes to zero. What has happened is I haven't lost the money because I didn't buy rights. I bought the asset. So I actually own that Bored Ape. So the way this project is done, so the cheapest Bored Ape you can get right now is for around about like $85,000. That's the cheapest one you can get right now and stuff. And they were sold for like $300, $400, and anyone could buy it and stuff. And they're worth that much. Just to tell you, some of the brands that kind of own this, Adidas has a Bored Ape. They're kind of building an entire IP around it. A couple of days ago, it was on, they launched their fashion line with the Bored Ape, which is a cartoon character that was on Burj Khalifa actually. So like they're really going global with it and stuff. Eminem and Snoop Dogg have created like a music video out of it because they both own Bored Apes as well. Right. There are only 10,000 of these in the entire world, and there are people who've kind of own this. And the thing, there's a culture element to these NFTs that if they give you commercial rights, that you can build something out of it. Imagine owning Captain America and building something out of it, building your own game or building a theme park or a restaurant or whatever. What you're doing is you're celebrating culture, right? Of the comic books and like the entertainment world is all about culture. It's all about, which is why people in Comic-Con like to dress up as these characters. There's an element of fun, entertainment, being seen as that, speaking like that, talking like that. It's part of culture. And in NFTs, we are trying to take that very thing, culture, and kind of tokenize it. We always say, people who are into NFTs, they're saying that when you're buying assets as NFTs, you're actually, when you're collecting art or collecting NFTs, you're collecting culture. And this kind of goes into the investment side and stuff. So for example, the one thing I want to just make clear that this is not I'm obviously not giving financial advice, and I'm not saying one thing is better than the other. There are different asset classes in the world, whether it's gold, whether it's stock, whether it's real estate, whatever it is. They all have their different risk and reward ratio. They have their own different thesis. The difference between, let's say, the stock world and NFTs is the stock world, let's say like startup stocks are very much the value of these stocks very much comes down to the product they're building or the technologies behind it. So there's a substantial, fundamental, tangible thing that kind of creates that value, right? In NFTs, a lot of value in NFTs comes straight up from supply and demand. It's a speculative value, and I would say I know a lot of people who are into the traditional financial systems would say that speculative value is not real value. And I get that argument. But like speculative value is a real thing. It's a real thing even if you're not able to put it on paper. And a good example of it is like Picasso paintings or Monet's work or Mona Lisa or Van Gogh's work and stuff. They've all been asset classes throughout history where people actually buy them, and they're actually the assets that are least affected by financial institutions. The least. Real estate gets affected, stock gets affected. So the thing with NFTs right now, because they're so early and they're still booming, there is very high risk, but there's high reward as well. But it's quite a lot more volatile than even crypto is and stuff. So it's still, because we're still in its such infancy, there's a big learning curve. There's we don't even have proper platforms or a lot of YouTube videos, for example, or anything that is properly getting educated, that is probably educating people. And part of the reason for that is, and I can say this as someone who's been an artist in the NFT space, who's been a creator in the NFT space, a collector as well, and now building a company, that this industry, because it's in its so early phases, it's evolving very fast. Right. So it's very hard for someone to build education models or direction plans where things are changing every 3-4 weeks. It's almost like, imagine, we say that this is almost like building something in the internet, like at the birth of the internet and stuff, where every day it could just be one random person who comes up with an idea and someone funds it and they build something, and suddenly we're completely moving in a slightly different tangent than we did yesterday. So I feel like we are still so early. I would say there were only a handful of couple of million people around the world who are into NFTs. So there's still a very small percentage of people who are into it. I think NFTs still have a very high risk element to it. But you are seeing a lot of big companies and brands get into it, right? I mentioned that NFTs can become assets, but they don't necessarily have to be assets. At the core of it, blockchain is all about transparency and authenticity. And I feel like people should really hone on this idea. Starbucks is moving their loyalty program in the future on the blockchain. Mm-hmm. They've already started doing this and stuff. A lot of brands, Nike is getting into, like, they have a big project into the NFT space. They are very much getting into it. Adidas is getting into it. You have companies like Disney is getting into the blockchain world. There are like a lot of gaming companies. There are companies that are actually tokenizing real estate as well. So you're seeing where you buy an NFT, it's again a certificate of authenticity that represents a chunk of land or a chunk of a villa or whatever and stuff.
That's a real one.
A real one. So across the board, that we are seeing big companies. We have like Hermes and like Tiffany and Co. and Dolce & Gabbana. You have luxury companies coming into it. You have tech companies coming into it. Sony from the PlayStation side, they've started investing into it. Meta is obviously, Facebook is putting billions. They're putting not millions, billions of dollars into this whole metaverse and Web3 and like the future. So you are seeing across the board a lot of big companies and brands get into it. So it's gonna get a lot more streamlined. It's gonna get a lot less riskier. But it's something that here's my advice to people, that I feel like even if you're not, so right now the two ways people get into NFTs is either as an investor or as a creator. You either create NFTs or you sell NFTs. or you're building something in it. I would say that even if you don't fall in either of this categories, you don't have the money to invest, or you think it's too risky, or you're not an artist or a creator or whatever, what I would still say is just make sure that you're getting yourself educated into this space. This is almost, imagine digital marketing is such a big aspect of marketing today. I remember, because I used to do this before, I remember a lot of companies who were not even investing into Google ads, or like, putting content online or putting videos online or whatever, because they thought then, oh, I'm a luxury brand, and the whole idea of us selling a luxury product is the experience you get out of it when you come to our store. They were against it. And suddenly they are shutting down shops because they focus so much on e-commerce and selling stuff through digitally. A lot of their marketing is digital. So I've seen throughout history, we've seen it's the same, a new technological shift comes in, a huge group of people are against it. They don't think it makes sense. This, imagine doing YouTube videos, trying to do YouTube videos for a living 10 years ago and stuff. How ridiculous it would sound if you're telling someone, I want to do YouTube for a living, right? So what I tell people is that regardless of what you're doing, just get educated into it. Because I believe in the future, regardless of whether you're working in the field of marketing, you're working in accounts, finance, law, whatever it is, that I feel like all these industries will start incorporating the concept of blockchain, because the concept of blockchain just relies on transparency and authenticity. Imagine philanthropy. One of the biggest issues we have in the world with philanthropy is we can never make sure that the money is actually going to the right people. Or what, blockchain solves all of these issues. Imagine having your let's say, when we travel to other countries, when we need visas and stuff, you're authenticating documents, you're going to the education council, you're getting a certificate from the bank or whatever. What is all this doing is making sure that you are as authentic of a person as you're claiming to be, and that you don't have any criminal record or whatever. But what they're trying to do, in essence, is trying to just authenticate stuff. Right now, because all these companies and organizations have their own models. So let's say when you want to get your degree attested, they have their own platforms, they have their own structure. A banking system has their own structure to this thing. What we are saying is, why don't all of you guys work on a bigger structure which is not controlled by anyone, and kind of build an ecosystem where we can put at least some aspects of data transparently for everyone to see. And of course, I know this can go into the conversation of privacy and data and stuff, and that's a whole different conversation. But it would solve a lot of problems for a lot of people around the world. The amount of times people have lost opportunities because of a lot of these legalities and stuff. The other thing is, when you're creating a bank account today, you need KYC. You need to have a house. You need to prove this thing. What happens to people who don't have access to people who are homeless? How are you? And this goes into a different conversation. We'll probably not get into it, but because I used to be in criminalistics and stuff, right? We talk about that. How do you rehabilitate people who have been into drugs or have done crimes and then have served time or whatever, and they get back into society, but the systems and organization doesn't help them get back into society? How are they not supposed to turn towards crime again? If this person is homeless, they can't. Now you are saying this, the only way for this homeless person to turn their life around is to make some money, build from the ground up, hopefully get a small time job, this and that and stuff. But they can't get any of this because you can't get a bank account, you don't have legal documents, and it's a whole vicious circle. And this is the problem with centralized systems and stuff. People who've been marginalized, who've been affected by these systems, will tell you why this makes sense and stuff, right? Sorry, I feel like I went in a different tangent. But I think when you're talking about NFTs, you are collecting culture. I think that's the biggest difference between stocks or real estate and this thing. I think culture is a lot more impactful and meaningful than people realize. It makes us who we are. It makes life what it is and stuff. We are doing this. Podcast is a culture. People listen to podcasts while driving to work or doing their chores and stuff. There's an element of education and entertainment. Culture is a very broad topic.
It's inclusive also, isn't it?
It's inclusive, and it's a very broad topic because it includes everything. It includes education. It includes entertainment. It includes being part of something bigger. It includes being part of a community. You and I we can sit and talk about sports because we are both into sports. What is that? That's culture, right? And I feel like it's very interesting to see, to be investing into culture. It's a very new form of investment. I think the idea of it being completely decoupled from government decisions or financial institutions is a lot more interesting of an idea to me in terms of investing and stuff. But I still say, like any financial advisor would tell you, to always diversify your investments. Obviously, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Even if you go in stocks, you never buy just one stock and go all in, right? What I would say is I would encourage people to like really get educated in bigger companies, bigger brands that are getting into NFTs. Dubai Police has issued their own NFTs.
Okay.
Yeah. Dubai's government has a Dubai Metaverse Council, right? So when you're seeing a lot of these like proper brands, like Mercedes has their NFTs, Porsche is launching their NFTs. When you're seeing all these companies and big brands, I'm hoping that this adds a level of legitimacy to this technology and people can get more and more educated in it. One of the best ways right now to get into NFTs, everything in the NFT world happens on Twitter. Everyone who's buying, collecting, happens on Twitter and Discord. And Discord is for people who don't know, it's like a platform. Imagine Slack. People use Slack at work all the time.
Right.
Discord is basically used to be a similar platform, which used to be used a lot in the gaming world.
Okay.
And it's interesting that a lot of companies, a lot of brands, Adidas has their own Discord now. Yeah. Because they know the Web3 culture is on Twitter. It's not on Instagram yet. It's only starting to come on Instagram yet. But crypto has always been on like Twitter a lot, even like for years and years. Crypto Twitter, that's what they call it, CT. CT has been like a real thing for a very long time and stuff. Right. That's where a lot of the discussions happen. So right now, one of the best ways to get educated on NFTs is you find a lot of cool podcasts and a lot of videos on YouTube. For education purposes, for discussions and like really finding projects or like investment strategies or learning from people, go on Twitter. Get on NFT Twitter and like you'll meet some of the coolest people in the world.